Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Pink Edit podcast, hosted by yours truly, Eleanor. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. How are you guys doing today? By the time I'm recording this, it has been quite an eventful 3 weeks, actually, I would say. I've been non-stop, that I have actually not a lot of time to do schoolwork recently, which haven't, obviously, it's not great because, I need to pass third year, right? But along the lines of this episode, we're talking about mental health and just personal, physical health. So yeah, and I don't know if my mic could pick up on my stomach, but I haven't had dinner yet. I'm recording this quite late and I have not decided what to eat yet. So if you do hear a bit of grumbling, it's probably my stomach. So obviously this episode is a little bit more sensitive. So if you cannot handle it today because you need to take care of yourself, please do. You could always come back to listen to a different episode anytime. Always gonna be here. So let's start off with a Chinese saying that we say a lot. Actually, we say this during New Year's, and if you haven't watched the one video I posted on my YouTube channel, which is just the Chinese traditions we do on New Year's, obviously I mentioned that we say something called Sen Tai Gin Hong in Cantonese, and in Mandarin is 身体健康. The literal translation to this is just that we want your health to be good, basically. Obviously, I know with posting on social media and everything, and what information has been available on the internet. So illnesses, generally, mental health and obviously physical health in general has been very hard, I know, for a lot of people, since especially from COVID onwards. And obviously I think COVID, especially with mental health, has impacted it the most. And I'm sure a lot of people probably oh yeah, that's really great, no school for at first it was probably 2 weeks, then I went to 10, and then I went to 3 months, and then there was on and off lockdowns after that, especially in the UK. I'm not too sure about anywhere else, but obviously COVID played a massive part, and especially it affects a lot of people's social skills and also developmental skills, because socializing plays a massive part in one's development and stuff. I am no expert, but I know for sure that a child needs socializing and stuff to actually improve their socialization skills and the similar things like that. But obviously with that, and nowadays as well with social media, people are more open to be talking about mental health. And obviously I've been through personal struggles a lot. I struggled a lot, especially since moving to where I live now. And when I mean that, I don't mean university. I mean when I moved for secondary school. The place I live is kind of countryside-ish, so there's not very many people of color in general. And in my school, it was majority white people. And you're probably wondering, why is that an issue you bring up? Is because that's what led to me suffering a lot mentally at 10, 11 years old. And I know I'm probably not the only one on this planet to be experiencing this, especially that young. But personal experience, when I look back on it now, I just think it is so crazy that a 11-year-old child has specific thoughts. And I think if you can infer from that, yes, trigger warning, I'm so sorry, but if you can infer from that, you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, my parents, I know probably my parents might listen to this, but at the time before that, they weren't really like knowledgeable on mental health and everything. And obviously, like, my dad grew up in the UK as well, so he told me about like, oh, during my days, like, nobody really ever came out to say they had many mental health struggles and stuff. And I'm sure a lot of you who have parents that are a little bit more on the old-fashioned kind of way would also tell you like, oh, we never grew up hearing people having these like mental health crisis or anything. But obviously, new generation, we become quote unquote woke. It is not a bad thing. It is a good thing that like more people talk about mental health, but it is a certain extent you can use it as an excuse. And when I mean excuse, I mean in quotes excuse. It doesn't, mental health doesn't excuse your actions the same as like, say, if certain things happened when you're younger. It's not an excuse for what you do when you're older. Yeah, so it shouldn't be used as an excuse, but people who suffer from it, well, we don't suffer, but we experience it. People who have mental health or who had mental health understands how difficult it is for someone to get out of that headspace and to physically like actually start change by actually like, say, going to seek help, because even if it's hard or it's a habit of the way people stay quiet, it does like, it gets really difficult for someone to start that. Because when I experienced through it, I actually never told my parents about it until probably 3 months later. And obviously my parents were very worried about me, because they noticed changes. So some of the things that I were like displayed was like less eating, obviously like being sad, and not being as happy or as joyful a 11-year-old should be. And I think one of them was like being a little bit more quiet and less chatty than my usual self. And especially my dad noticed and asked me, because every day after school and up until literally like he still does ask me after university at the end of the day, like currently he always asks like, how was your day, how was school, or how was university. And so yeah, my parents are very observant with me and my brother, and any slight changes they will think something is wrong. But I definitely want to talk about especially like the actual help, because my experience of actually getting help from specifically professionals was so hard, and I still find it difficult to go and find this help. So obviously there are quite a lot of charities available in the UK, obviously, and because I live in Wales, I do have a specific one that is more mostly Wales based. I'll definitely have links to these charities and any other external links for mental health if you need to access them. There will be in the link in the description if you're listening to this on YouTube, and I'll probably try and find a way to do it on Spotify. Bear with me, guys. I'm not too sure still how to use Spotify properly. But many of these charities, they do have kind of like an online little chat box or help chat that people, probably sometimes not professionals, but people who can allocate say actual other mental health charities or therapy services and stuff, they do answer you. But it does get difficult, because when I went to literally look for help, I called my local doctors and I had a conversation with one of the doctors over the phone, because they said it should be a phone appointment, which I don't understand. Why do I have to be snatching a phone appointment? In general, appointments, because I can't even beat the elderly who are ready and roaring to go at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll never understand that. But I talked to the doctors, and the doctors basically told me, oh, I'll print you a list of charities that can help you, which you could come and pick up on a piece of paper. Be for real. And then also they told me that they will link me up with this service that works with students at school, and they can talk to teachers and like head of years and head teachers so that they can see what they can adjust for that pupil or that person at school. And then I remember I got a call from that specific service, I think possibly 2 weeks after that initial phone call. And obviously I did pick up the paper that they printed, which by the way is so not helpful. And obviously they interviewed me, they asked me struggles, certain things, so that they can figure out what they need to do or what they need to talk to teachers about to make it a little easier for me. And then they said they will call me back to update me. And guess what? I never got that update from them. And I don't think they even actually ever talked to my school about that. So yeah, I think I do remember very, very like strongly, like I used to just break down a lot, and sometimes I still do that when it gets a little overwhelming and I can't talk to anyone about it. I literally cry in my room. But my mum says, and this is not professional, but my mum says probably she needs to cry it out, she'll probably feel better after it, and it's true. Personally, I do get quite emotional. I'm a very emotional person. It's like when I watch sad movies, I will cry. An example of that was Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Literally from the start of the movie until the end, I was crying in the cinema. I was crying for 3 hours and I had a migraine from it. So yeah, I am a very emotional person, and I obviously at first struggled to talk about my feelings to my parents, but now I find it easier and I can freely tell my parents what I feel nowadays, which I'm really lucky and grateful for. But I actually would never be able to talk to a counselor or a therapist until I think year 11 to year 12. So that's about 15 to 16 years old. So that was quite a long time. After initially the first quote unquote first time it happened, that was back in year 7, and then I kind of, in a sense, kind of got out of depression. Went back to the doctors to have a little catch up, because I actually went for, I think, something else. I think they actually wanted to test me for any like mental health, if it's like hereditary or anything. And I remember they didn't really want me to hear it, but obviously I was in a room, so I pretended that I didn't listen. But the doctor was like to my dad, like, oh, she seemed much better than the last time I saw her, because obviously the last time he saw me was about, being depressed and stuff like that. But I was able to talk to properly, actually, to talk to someone, actually was in year 13, which was the last year of school. Imagine having to wait until literally almost 7 years later to properly talk to a certified person about mental health and the way you feel. So basically in year 12 to 13, I, in a sense, kind of relapsed back to being depressed. And I was struggling mentally a lot. I had quite a lot of anxiety attacks as well, which was obviously not great. And I remember one time, it was actually the last day of Christmas term at school in year 13. And I can't remember how it ended up, but I ended up like literally breaking down in the common room, and I was just sat at a table crying with my head, like I had my hood on and my head basically in my arms on the table. And my best friend at the time, she tried to comfort me, but obviously sometimes when people do go through like a breakdown or anything, it is hard to comfort a person because obviously you're not too sure what to say or anything. And even if I have experience of that, and if someone actually went through a breakdown, I actually wouldn't know what to say to that person either, because I know that whatever you say, sometimes it doesn't help or it doesn't work. So sometimes I feel like it's better to kind of just be there for that person without needing to say anything. But I then called my dad, because sixth formers are allowed phones in my school anyways. But all the other years can't. So I was in a common room, so we were really loud, our phones, and I called my dad and I was like, I'm not doing okay. I don't know why I'm crying, but I cannot talk to anyone, because at the beginning of the year I actually signed up for the counselor. So there's this one other company that actually works with schools and students. So they have one at my school at the time, and they had a specific room dedicated for this company to have counselors come in and talk to students. You just have to sign up. And basically, up until that Christmas, I saw the counselor once, and then afterwards I was not able to see her, because every time I had my session, I would actually walk past the receptionist would tell me like, oh, she's coming in late, blah blah blah. Okay, I go upstairs and I wait 15-20 minutes for her to show up, and she doesn't show up. So then I walk back downstairs and the receptionist goes, oh, she's not coming in today for blah blah XYZ reason. And this happened every week after that first initial session I had with her, which obviously, like, what the hell? Anyways, so yeah, I didn't get to see anyone until basically that one last day of Christmas term, and I broke down. And I remember I called my dad, and my dad goes, have you ever seen anybody at school? I was like, no, the last time I saw this lady was September. It's December time. It's literally mid-December. I have not seen this lady for like 6+ weeks, I think, which is crazy because her job was to be a counselor at the school and she never showed up. So I called my dad, ended the call, and the bell rang because I literally had that call during lunchtime. So then I decided, I have to go to my class because I had the class right after lunch. And my dad was like, okay, I'll call the school. And I was like, you do what you need to do because I can't deal with it anymore, okay? So I went into my maths class, and the teacher walked out for a little bit because I don't know what she had to do. But last 2 days of school, if you guys know, if you go to a British school, you'll know that last 2 days of Christmas term is mainly like you don't really do work, you just watch Christmas movies, or you play like games and stuff. So obviously I'm not missing much. But then my best mate came to the class because she didn't take maths, I did. And she says, the head of year wanted to talk to you, but obviously I said you were in class, and she said, oh, you can go and talk to the counselor. And I just said, oh, can someone just tell the teacher like I'm out? And I don't know how long I'll be. And I left, and then when I was walking towards that counselor's room, I saw the head of year, and she was like, oh, your dad called and stuff. And basically the head counselor, because there was two, and one of them's like the boss, she's upstairs. She stayed in case anyone needed to talk to her or anything, so you can go and talk to her now. And I was like, okay, I go upstairs and I talk to this lady. I was like, this is crazy, like, I don't know what's affecting me, and I think I just need to talk about certain things to her. But I haven't seen the counselor I was referred to for 6 weeks. This is ridiculous. I was telling her, like, every time I try to wait for her, it always ends up with me waiting outside for 20 minutes and then walking downstairs to be told, oh, she's not coming in today. Well, wasting my time. But in the new year, after Christmas, I was able to talk to this new counselor because they hired a new woman instead. And she was the best help, literally, like, out of everything and anything I've tried, she was the best counselor, helper ever. And to this day, I am literally grateful for her, because without her, I think I would be in a worse place than I am now. But yeah, I got really upset because I was literally being passed back and forth between different like therapy or like mental health organizations, the doctors, so school. So I literally remember wailing to my dad. I literally physically asked for help. Like, out of not many people wouldn't go and ask for help, right? So I decided to go and ask for help, and I never received the help. And I don't understand why this was happening to me. Obviously, the message of this is don't stay quiet if you need help, guys. If you need help, literally go and seek help, because even if there's no professional like a counselor or a therapist or the doctors can't help, if you have good parents, they will literally listen to you. And sometimes, like, even my parents, they don't suggest like things you kind of like need help with. They would just kind of listen to you, which is still better than nothing, because at the end of the day, I feel like personally with mental health, you actually just need to get it off your chest without being judged, maybe sometimes even without needing to be suggested any solution to the problem, because sometimes there's just certain problems that there's no solution to, and that's okay. But yeah, personally, like I said, through my experience, I now confide in my parents, and both of my parents are very supportive of that, even though my dad, like I said, is mainly the one who always like, mostly, he's a bit more old fashioned than my mum. He does also ask like, please could you tell me, like, educate me more on mental health and stuff, because I need to know if I want to help you. But yeah, I've been let down by the very system that was set up to try help us. I know charities and stuff, unlike NHS, that provide these services, they have a very long waiting list. When I remember Googling or searching how long these wait lists are, and I would actually email or like, use a chatbot to ask like how long the wait is, it was literally like 6 months. And I literally was saying like 6 months is ridiculous, because what if 6 months is too late to help me, or I don't know if I can wait 6 months to actually talk to people. And I know you can pay to be like moved closer to the front of the line, but I was like, I'm literally under 18. There is no way I can pay for these therapy services and stuff. And it's not saying like, oh, my parents wouldn't help. I don't want my parents to be paying this for me. If I need it, I would pay it. And I literally was just kind of shocked of how long these waiting lists were. Obviously, if you ask me nowadays, like how I handle it, I actually just, like I said, always tell my parents. Sometimes if I need to, I cry by myself in my room. So that's fun. Which, I mean, I'm not being joking. I love my room. I love my bed. I love staying by myself a lot of time. I know my dad keeps always like urging me, like, stop staying in your room by yourself all the time. Like, if you can with your friends, like hang out with them or go outside, whatever. It's just, yeah. And then my mum's always saying you need more vitamin D, you need more sunlight. This is why you're kind of sad most of the time, because you don't see the sun enough. Guys, I wished it was, because there's no sun in the UK. But yeah, obviously, I don't really like using the charities or therapy groups, NHS and stuff, but I don't know what they're like now, but I will still link them down below if you need any more help, because it's a better start than nothing. And yeah, like I said, I literally cry it out. But I do also, try to hang out with my friends, or, do stuff that I like. Make sure you give yourself self-care days where you literally do nothing. No work, no nothing. You shouldn't force yourself to focus on things when you cannot focus on yourself, because that just stresses you out even more. I would definitely say sometimes with stress and stuff, I don't handle it very well. Because then I will get like moody and stuff, and unfortunately that affects a lot of people around me, like my parents and stuff, my family, because I can't help but I can't control my emotions sometimes, and that happens to like everyone. It is okay. Like I said, you shouldn't be any shame around mental health, especially people who have it. Like I said, I've had it and I still go through it, like maybe not as severe as it was like a couple years back, but I still, go through it. But also sometimes it is quite difficult if you are over 18. A lot of charities and, therapy and stuff is like expensive, or they're only charities that do help up until 18. So there's not as many for adults or anything. But if you do go to university, your university does have its own like mental health section, like little space that have people that help you. But also physical health plays a big part. Go for a run, go for even a walk. It doesn't have to be like raising your heartbeat like to 100. Going for a walk is really good too. I walk to work. I know that's walking to work, but the walk to work is still very nice. And keeping yourself physically healthy too, it plays a big role in your mental health, because anything that basically de-stresses you, like physical workouts, going to the gym, doing a sport that you love, definitely relaxes that tension in you, which obviously, like I said, is very, very good. I'll definitely say never feel like you are a burden to anyone. I've been told this a lot by my parents because obviously I tell them how I feel, and I said that if I told you I feel like much more of a burden to you, because obviously like mental health obviously is a very big thing, and it does affect like everyone. So that is sometimes something some people kind of forget, that although you go, experience mental health crisis sometimes, or you're going through something, it does affect the people around you. You're not the only one going through it, because obviously, like I said, I used to get very upset, or I would have a lot of mood swings and stuff, and that does affect people around me. And I know you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen. It does, because sometimes you can't control the way you feel, right? So never forget that there are people out there. You just have to find those right people. But there are people out there who are willing to help you and are there to support you at the end of the day. And you shouldn't stay quiet, and actually just try and find help. I know that's really hard, because obviously, like I said, I struggled to actually tell my parents how I really feel for a very long time, until we started very slowly, or there was just one day it overfilled so much that I had to tell them. But you shouldn't let it get like overwhelmed to the point where then you can't hold it in, that you actually have to spill it to somebody. Seeking help, even if it's a small thing, is still better than not seeing somebody or talking to somebody and letting it build even more. Because at the end of the day, if it was a big thing and you kept it to yourself, every little thing then after that bothers you, it still adds up, because any small thing can trigger that explosion, and it you'll overfill and you overspill and stuff like that, and you can only take so much. And hopefully, like I would say, doctor surgeries close to you are probably hopefully better than my one, because obviously my one was not very helpful whatsoever, because they just told me, oh, you just need to get this list from me. Like, what the hell, lady? You are a qualified doctor. How are you telling me to go and do it by myself when I'm literally seeking help from the professional, the one who is part of the NHS, the one who spent like 7 years in like doctor school, whatever, and you tell me to go and collect a list from the surgery? Are you joking? Obviously, like at the beginning of this episode, I did say like mental health was definitely been a bigger toll on everyone since COVID, but obviously mine started before that. I started, and I actually don't think I actually properly explained where what happened. Basically, I don't know why I'm stuttering, but how it actually occurred. So basically, I got depression in the beginning of year 7 from racial bullying. At the time, I didn't know what really racial bullying was, because I came from a city, and because cities are more diverse, you wouldn't experience it as much as you would compared to, like I said, where I live, which was majority white people. So from literally the first day of year 7 until December of year 7, I got bullied on the bus by this one kid that I never went to school with, because he actually went to the primary school I finished year 6 in. I've never met him, but he was in a year above. I've only heard stories from like classmates and my friends and stuff, and they told me like, oh, he's really naughty, he flipped the table at a teacher, stuff like that. So lucky me, I ended up on the same bus back to and from like secondary school with him. And obviously not very, like, especially where I lived, not very many people have come across people of color, so they don't really know how to be friends with them, which I think is crazy. It shouldn't matter what the hell someone looks like. At the end of the day, they're still a human. You just treat them like a normal freaking human. But yeah, I was like any other Asian person who grew up in the West and understand where I came from. I literally was so embarrassed to be Asian, to be Chinese, to be seen as, you know, someone who isn't white, who wasn't blonde or blue-eyed or just, you know, the quote-unquote slanty eye shit. So that was really, really tough time for me, honestly. And throughout high school, as Americans call it, or secondary school, especially in like year 9, I got bullied again for it. And this one other kid, he moved to my school because he was kicked out the last one. Funny. And he was in a different form, but he was friends with the guys in my form. And this one specific incident that happened was actually during lunchtime in my own form room. Other kids from different forms weren't allowed in like our form room, and that was quite a clear like rule. But for some reason, he actually came in and the guys did not care. And mind you, there was quite a lot of people in this room, and I literally sat down, was like finished eating, you know, at lunchtime, and it was a science room and stuff. But he tried to squish me between 2 tables because he thought it was really funny. And so I got pissed off because obviously I was friends with the girls in my form at the time. Like, they were my friends and they said absolute nothing to back me up, which is even worse. But he literally tried to squish me between 2 tables. He was grabbing like both the tables, and like, because I was sat in between 2 of them, because for some reason my seat normally in form time, like my set seat, was between 2 tables. So I sat there because I know you're not supposed to, but I went on my phone, and he just squished me between the tables and nobody ever stood up for me. And I got pissed off because I'm getting sick of this, obviously, and I literally wanted to slap him, but if I slapped him I would be no better than him. So I got pissed off and I actually shouted like, what the fuck was wrong with you? And I literally was so angry, I pushed the table until it almost flipped it on its side, and then I just stormed out the room. And literally nobody said anything. None of my friends ever backed me up when someone bullied me, ever. Like, and I got bullied quite often for being Chinese in a school majority white. So yeah, they were not very good friends, clearly. But yeah, that was the story of basically in year 7 how it started. Because obviously when you get bullied, you know, the victim is gonna go through a lot of mental roller coasters from it. But yeah, that is actually the end of this episode. I hope you guys are okay. Like I said, I will link the charities that I have currently, or any extra links in the description box on the YouTube version of this. Obviously, like I said, I'm trying to figure out this Spotify thing, but if you need to, head over to my YouTube channel, and I probably will post this as well onto the Instagram of the podcast, so make sure you follow the podcast over there as well. Make sure you also follow my personal account as well. Links will be up. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, I hope you like this. Make sure you subscribe, like the episode, and turn on the post notifications. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, make sure you follow. And, you know, I think download this episode or add it to your favorites, because I'm sure you'll like to listen to me yap. I know, like I said, this episode is a little bit more sensitive, but if you need help, remember that there are people out there who want to help you. Make sure you go and ask for help, because change only happens when you ask for it. And literally, if you need to, beg people, okay? I literally begged people until I was seen by somebody. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully the next episode won't be as heavy as this one. But yeah, I hope you guys stay happy, healthy, and make sure you stay safe. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye bye.